Cristo poder, luchar, vencer. Cristo poder, luchar, vencer.
Back in February 2019, people were protesting at Green Correctional Facility because Anthony Myrie, this up-and-coming rapper, was suddenly reported dead. Now that's just the beginning of the story. There's more disturbing stuff down the road. Here are some rappers who were instantly killed in prison. April 25th, 2023, money sign Suede found himself in a dire situation, serving time at California State Prison. That day would mark a violent and traumatic turn of events. Money sign Suede, real name Jaime Brugada Valdez, was an American rapper who was a magnet for trouble. At the age of 18, he was incarcerated for the first time for carjacking. By that time, he already had a hit track and was on his way to becoming a big name in the rap game. He got out on parole, but trouble wasn't far off, because he would return soon after for some more serious offenses. December 2022, Money Sign was sentenced to prison for being in possession of guns as a convict on parole. That's where things take a dark turn. He was to serve time at Soledad, California, a place where you play by gang rules or you get a hit placed on you. From the moment Suede got in this place, all eyes were on him. He was a hotshot with a couple of successful hit songs like Back to the Bag.
Again, to go state prison, yeah, I'll be back though. I'm going for like a year and a half. Like a year and some change.
State prison.
Before Suede went to jail, he and his friends hung out together, and they even recorded this moment. This would be the last video of Suede. The world would see of him being free and alive. Now generally, Suede was loved, but in prison it's impossible not to have someone that wants to kill you. And in Soledad, the gangs never left this Mexican kid who was one of the hottest brown-skinned rappers in the US alone. Now while in prison, a fight suddenly broke out one day in the middle of the prison yard, crowded with inmates during their afternoon recess. They were trash talking, but the details are unclear, and it quickly escalated into a physical fight. In the crowded yard, tempers flared, and a chaotic scene unfolded. Later, they found out that the Sureños, a gang coming out of Mexico, approached Suede. They wanted him in their gang, but he said no. He really wasn't interested. Plus, he was at a point in his life where he really wanted to get out of that game. You see, Suede felt that he needed to show he was gangsta to be taken seriously in this rap game. He was rapping like a tough guy, showcasing his guns, and now that he was in prison, he was being asked to live up to what he was always showing off, and officially identify with the gang. Unfortunately for that rapper, things only got worse when they discovered that Suede had not only been refusing their offer, but was also discussing the gang's activities with people outside the facility. They found out that he'd written a letter to his girlfriend detailing how Mexican gangs were putting pressure on him, and his girlfriend had posted that on social media.
Can do for you, kid.
Get off. You gotta go poke some. Whoever got you
gotta do your thing.
Yeah.
You gotta do your thing.
A Crip gang member known as Mac Crip later said that Suede's girlfriend was the one who put him in that situation, and he should have kept his problems to himself. So on April 25th, 2023, Suede walks into this prison bathroom, unaware of the danger that was coming. As soon as he stepped in, everyone bounced, except for a few gang members who stayed behind, plotting to kill him. Without warning, they brutally attacked Suede, beating and punching mercilessly. One guy just took out a sharp metal object and stabbed him multiple times, leaving him for dead. Officials found him an hour later, unconscious, although they rushed him to the hospital clinic. It was too late. Later that afternoon, Suede was pronounced dead.
Cristo es poder, luchar, vencer. Cristo es poder, luchar, vencer. Cristo es poder, luchar, vencer.
February 2019, Anthony Myrie was involved in this fight while in prison when he suddenly just went missing. The details they discovered were pretty terrifying and unexpected. Anthony Myrie, known by his name Trey, gained recognition in the NY rap scene for his raw and unfiltered lyrics, often depicting the harsh realities of street life. In the months leading up to his death while in prison, Trey released a lot of mixtapes and collaborated with a bunch of East Coast rappers. Anthony was in prison serving 7 years after being convicted of attempted criminal sale of a controlled substance, and the incidents leading up to his death are really sketchy, kinda raising questions about foul play.
His grandmother, who raised him, is still stunned.
I don't know how he died. He was healthy.
Pix 11 started investigating.
According to his mom, the prison authority didn't tell the family what happened to him, but there were a lot of clues to work with. February 11, 2019, Sadie Myrie, Anthony Myrie's wife, explained that she'd received a call from Anthony while at the Green Correctional Facility, and he would express concern to her, which was kind of unusual for him. After the call ended, Sadie was informed by another inmate's family member that Anthony had been placed in solitary confinement, also known as the box. So she calls up the prison to ask about the situation, and she was told that they had him in the general population section. She didn't know how to feel about that, but 5 hours later she got a call that Anthony was in critical condition. Sadie attempted to contact Albany Medical Center to speak with somebody responsible for her husband, but found no record of him. She would try calling other local hospitals without success. However, not long after, she got a call from Green Correctional Facility saying Anthony had been pronounced dead at Albany Medical Center, the same hospital that just previously couldn't confirm any record of his body. So now the spokesperson for the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision reported that Myrie died after being involved in a 3-on-1 fight with other inmates. According to that statement, the guards tried to intervene into the fight without using force. Myrie was also said to have been examined immediately by medical staff and found to be unharmed. However, just a few moments later, Trey complained of chest pain and suddenly collapsed. He was then allegedly taken to the Albany Medical Center where he died. Following the unusual details of his death, Cardi B and Meek Mill expressed their reactions on social media. Cardi shared a message on Instagram from Myrie's family with the caption, "Green Correctional Facility, you not f***ing getting away with this one." She's hinting that the prison guards may have been responsible for hurting him and accuses all the officials of lying about where his body was being held to buy time. Meek Mill also shared that family's message and became a voice for prison reform after he was also held in solitary confinement for breaking his parole. Both artists highlighted the need for transparency and justice in the case of Myrie's death.
Ambushed after being released from Cook County Jail in Chicago, was shot about 64 times. 31-year-old rapper Lre Sylvester.
July 10th, 2021, Chicago rapper Lre Sylvester was released from Cook County Prison after posting bail. But instead of freedom, he was met with something so deadly, no one could believe it would ever happen at a prison facility. July 1st, 2021, KTS Dre, real name Lre Sylvester, was sent to prison for a felony case he had back in 2020. Now, the judge granted him a $5,000 bail, and he was sent to Cook County Maximum Security Prison in Chicago until he posted bail. Unfortunately, those incarcerated at this place were the worst of the worst in Chi-Town. Now, Lre wasn't an innocent victim. He was very much part of a deadly gang community that was pretty notorious around the state. In prison, KTS Dre would link up with his crew, but he had to be vigilant because this place was home to several rival gangs. You see, Lre was a member of the Lakeside faction of a violent gang known as the Gangster Disciples. His nickname, KTS Dre, held a secret meaning that explains a lot about the local rapper's life. It meant kill to survive. This is why he had a KTS tattoo on his neck with a target symbol next to it. It was a sign that he was committed to that gang and would kill if he had to. That was his life pretty much, and prison only made him a target. Now he was always surrounded by his crew, so the chances of rivals taking him out was pretty difficult. So they waited for the right time to strike. On July 9th, 2021, his mom posted his $5,000 bond. That information was picked up by his enemies, and a message was sent out to a hit squad. Saturday, July 10th, Sylvester stepped out of his cell led by wardens to a private area, where a monitoring device was fixed to his ankle. He was in a pretty good mood because he was getting out, so he stopped and took some pics with his homies. Afterward, he proceeded with his 60-year-old mother and a female prison official to exit the facility. Now, unknown to everyone, things were about to get ugly because within seconds of stepping out that gate, two men from two vehicles suddenly stepped out with rifles and unleashed a hail of bullets in his direction. While his mom and the prison officer both sustained minor injuries, Lre wasn't so lucky, as he was hit 64 times. Once they were finished, they hopped back into their cars and escaped in different directions. He was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital, where he was pronounced dead.
So this is a suspect that British intelligence is considering in this death. He's a former hip-hop rapper from London who allegedly left to fight for ISIS.
In April 2020, Abdelhamid Abdelbari, a British rapper, was arrested in Spain, in the southern region of Almeria. No one could have predicted what would happen while he was in custody. 2013, this guy was also known as Lyricist Jin, and he decided that rap wasn't exciting enough for him anymore. So he left England to join the terrorist cell Al-Qaeda. Now, before switching over to terror, Jin was a member of the hip-hop group Black Triangle. His style shifted a little bit from rapping about drugs to rapping about radical lyrics that spoke against immorality in society. The Islamic radicalism in his music became really obvious, and so were his associations. Now, he was pretty famous out there. Even the BBC was playing his songs on the radio. Before the terrorism. Now, Barry was born in England and was a British citizen. His parents were from Egypt and his dad was a member of Al-Qaeda. Now, Barry would become one of the deadliest members of this group and quickly rise in the ranks to head his own unit. In July 2013, he left Al-Qaeda and joined ISIS in their Raqqa stronghold in Syria. Here he had his own team and was actively engaged in cybercrime to raise funds for his terrorist cell. That's not all though. He was notorious for tweeting and showing off executions, which made him the most wanted man in Europe. Fortunately, that reign of terror was about to come to an end. Now, Spanish authorities got a hold of Barry as he was trying to sneak into the country from Morocco through the Strait of Gibraltar. Surprisingly, he pled not guilty to all the charges, and it seemed like he was going to escape justice. If convicted, he would get a maximum of 9 years. Now, the trials led to public outrage because it looked like Barry had it kinda easy despite all the crimes against humanity. While still awaiting that verdict, he was imprisoned at Centro Penitenciario Puerto Tres and was placed under strict rules that included 20 hours a day of solitary confinement. Now, on July 27, 2023, Abdelhamid Abdelbari was declared dead as his lifeless body was found in his prison cell. This is where it gets interesting. The authorities initially reported that they couldn't disclose the cause of death. No autopsy was done and no pictures were released. While everything about his death seemed shady, it was later revealed that Barry committed suicide. Now, before he died, he started this horrible rap genre called jihad rap. At one point, everybody thought that he was Jihadi John, and people believed that he was the one who beheaded American journalist James Foley. During the night on September 2, 2021, Rwandan rapper Jay Polly was rushed to the hospital from a Kigali jail. What unfolded was this deadly underground activity being led by the government that left the entire country in shock. On April 2020, at the height of COVID-19, Joshua Tuyashime, better yet known as Jay Polly, was arrested at his home for hosting a party despite COVID restrictions. Next, he was slammed with drug charges and possession of a fake negative COVID certificate. Now claims are coming out saying that these were all excuses for the government to arrest people perceived as enemies of the regime. Jay was a top rapper in Rwanda, speaking out against the regime of General Paul Kagame, an act that Rwandans believe the general punished ruthlessly. Jay was held in Mageragere prison, which was unusual, as citizens have pointed out that suspected drug users were always taken to Iwawa Correctional Center. In addition to that, though, those who violated COVID restrictions at that time were also taken to stadiums, educated, fined, and then released. But in the case of Jay Polly, he spent 5 months in prison, and his court appearance was delayed for more than a month. On September 2, 2021, Jay Polly was suddenly rushed to Muhima Hospital in the capital of Kigali at around 1 in a bad and unresponsive state. Doctors tried to revive him, but he unfortunately died shortly after. They found out later that prison guards had made a juice of sugar and water and some methanol disinfectant, and then forced him to drink that deadly concoction while receiving blows from soldiers, as they ensured he drank that entire bottle. Methanol resembles alcohol, but it's deadly, so it was going to be easy for the guards to conceal that assassination. The symptoms that followed were horrific. Minutes after ingesting that, Jay had lost his sight. That was just the beginning of the effect. Then he bent over in agonizing pain as it began destroying his liver and kidneys. At that point, it was too late to save him. So, to complete that cover-up, the guards take him to a hospital where Jay Polly was confirmed dead. Now, according to reports, this wasn't the first time the critics of the government would die in prison. Jay Polly was the fourth rapper to die in prison within a span of 2 years. On February 2020, another rapper, Kizito Mahigo, died in a similar circumstance at the same prison in Kigali. This was the same fate for Emmanuel Gasakura and Kalisa Mupende. These were all rappers criticizing the government of General Paul Kagame, and they all paid a deadly price for it.
More about the young man who was killed in a shooting on the Palmetto Expressway yesterday.
And the northbound lane shut down for hours as police investigated the bullet-riddled car he was riding in after he had just been released from jail.
On March 16, 2022, stepping out of the Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center in Miami-Dade County, we have Timothy Sparks, aka Baby Ceno. And what happened to this guy is one of the worst incidents in the prison's history. Baby Ceno was new to the gangsta rap scene. His biggest track was Big Haiti Shot Us, talking about violence and shootings. In the song, he bragged about popping everybody, which was code for killing them. In his music video, he'd be seen making some coded gangsta handshakes. That was used by a local gang known as Boss Life to put a hit on the person receiving the handshake. Ceno featured that act in his song because he had recently lost a member of his crew called Gary Milo Laguera, and Ceno even dedicated that song to his fallen comrade. In 2022, lots of hits were put on several Miami street gangs, resulting in a lot of deaths that year. Now Ceno's looking over his shoulders and probably got a gun to protect himself. However, instead of protecting himself, his gun possession put him in serious trouble. March 2022, members of the Robbery Intervention Detail Unit from Miami-Dade Police Force arrested Baby Ceno for illegal possession of a Glock 32 with a full clip. The police said they picked him up because he was moving in a suspicious manner, and it was obvious that he had a concealed weapon and had concealed his vehicle's plate as well. Now, a few days later, Timothy was booked into Miami-Dade's prison facility. It'd be a really short stay, though, as he posted bail in less than 24 hours and walked out free. Now, what he didn't know was that his rivals weren't gonna let him slip out of their fingers so fast. March 16th, 2022, a rival gang knew Ceno was gonna walk free that afternoon, so they stake out around the prison. At 2:10 p.m., Baby Ceno and a man identified as Dante Collins Banks, who had come to pick him up, had stepped outside that facility and got into their car. Minutes later, as that red Nissan they were riding turned onto the expressway, Starks and Banks were suddenly ambushed by gunmen in another car in a wild daylight shooting in the middle of traffic.
2 people on the Palmetto in Hialeah firing at a red Nissan Altima around 3 p.m. Wednesday. The car crashed into a barrier wall. Dozens of casings were left on the roadway.
Before they could hide or do anything, the hit squad unleashed a barrage of bullets. Ceno was hit at least 40 times in the head and died on the scene. Unfortunately, Banks also succumbed to his injuries and died later at the hospital.
As the U.S. Attorney's Office claims Casanova led the untouchable guerrilla Stone Nation Bloods gang and directed a multi-state conspiracy in that role.
In 2023, for his involvement in gang activity, the New York federal court sentenced Brooklyn rapper Casanova to 15 years in prison. Now, Casanova had made a big mistake while in jail that would make his time there a horror show. Casanova, real name Caswell Sr., is a Haitian-American rapper known for his energetic performances and raw storytelling abilities. His life took a dark turn when he was indicted on a RICO charge alongside 17 others due to his alleged involvement with the Bloods gang untouchable guerrilla Stone Nation, where he was the leader. Prosecutors say the gang committed violence all across NYC. Not surprisingly, this wasn't his first run-in with the law. He was arrested at the age of 18 and was imprisoned at Rikers. During that time, he developed a strong connection with his cellmate, who'd later be known as the rapper A$AP Rocky. In June 2023, Casanova sought leniency by the gang he was affiliated with. In a letter to the judge, he expressed his intention to publicly sever ties with the gang in the future. Now, his family and friends also contributed statements, hoping for a lighter sentence for the rapper. As a result, Casanova became a target for attacks from said gang. In that same month, Casanova got into a fight with another inmate, later identified as Ulysses Lugo, in the recreation area of the detention center. The authorities said it lasted for about a minute, and at that time, Lugo was seen lunging at Casanova and stabbing him repeatedly with this sharp object before other gang members joined in. He tried to fight back and managed to stab Lugo several times too, but in the end, Casanova was subdued. The attack was swift and brutal, with Casanova sustaining multiple stab wounds to his head and neck. Now, this guy was in and out of prison for a long time, so he was no stranger to violence, and he also spent 3.5 years in solitary confinement. Casanova once admitted that violence was in his blood, and that he would never shy away from a fight. According to him, whenever he was in jail, he always made sure he had a razor with him. He'd hide that weapon up his backside and refrain from using it unless it was absolutely necessary. And in most cases, when he was attacked, it would turn out that his cellmate was involved. Also in this interview with DJ Vlad, Casanova admits that he injured about 12 people and got punished for slashing 3 inmates in one of his prison sentences.
Take pictures with him at the club.
That was my way of, you know, it was like tricking the crowd, I would say.
So to say Casanova was a menace would be an understatement. As for the attacker, Lugo, he was promptly restrained by officers and taken into custody. Lugo was a member of a rival gang, already serving 25 years to life for murder and weapons possession. All signs point to a potential gang-related motive. Now, an interesting theory is that just days before this incident, Casanova's legal team had some evidence they found. This motion could have potentially threatened the prosecution's case, and the stabbing may have been this attempt to intimidate or retaliate against Casanova for this legal maneuver. Additionally, gang-related tensions cannot be ruled out as a motive. Casanova's gang affiliation was public knowledge, and the presence of a rival gang member, Lugo, in that same place could have led to ongoing tensions or a desire to send a message between gangs. In 2010, hardcore rapper Xrated would get involved with one of the most vicious gangs in Pleasant Valley Prison, California. His experience would be very unpleasant, that left many questions unanswered. In 1992, Lre Vachon Brown, aka Xrated from Sacramento, was sentenced to 31 years for a murder of a woman that occurred when his gang invaded her home. Now, he would sing about this in a song titled Psychoactive, where he bragged about the horrible things he had done with his gang. This song was used as evidence in court, which was irrefutable proof that he was directly involved. While in prison, though, Brown continued to produce music under his record label, Blockstar Entertainment. He released several tracks for himself and other rappers, and that made him famous both in and out of the prison. Unfortunately for him, though, this game also attracted bad attention. There were gangs in here that took offense to what he said and others who wanted him to produce their gangster rap. Although Brown made it clear that he didn't want any business with these gangs, this was prison, and people in here don't like rejection. One such gang would be the Northern Riders, who really wanted him producing their music, but when he declined them, Brown immediately became a target. One afternoon, they saw an opportunity out in the yard. To cover their tracks, the gang would start a prison riot, and that gave him time to attack Brown. Brown tried fighting but was overpowered. In the end, he was brutally stabbed 7 times in his body and head. When officials arrived at the scene, he was bleeding severely and looked really pale. They wasted no time and took him to the medical center, where his injuries were termed life-threatening. This guy spent several months in recovery and only survived the attack through sheer luck.